Hi, I'm Lena, and this is Alex and April. We're going to work on shoulder strength and a little bit of external rotation. So we'll start. Sit tall, close your eyes. Just take a moment to notice. Feel the earth beneath you. Turn your hands together. And bow your head to your heart. Release your hands. Lift your chin. Open your eyes. Okay, come to downward facing dog. Take a moment, feel it, be. And release your knees to the earth. Slide your hips back, take child's pose. So let your forehead rest, walk your arms forward. I prefer knees wide, but if you like knees together, that's fine. Maybe invite your breath to get a little bit deeper, expansive. So as you take it in, fill up, side to side, back to front, top to bottom. See if that brings a sense of lightness into the pose. And then begin to walk your fingertips forward. Come up onto the tips of your fingers. These are cupcake hands. And start to wrap your outer arm down, so the tricep area wraps down, and then the bicep, the inner arm, lifts up. And we're working on external rotation as opposed to internal rotation. So allowing it to come from the shoulders. It's really easy to want to turn the lower arm. We'll be more effective if we turn the upper arms. And then we start to do a lot of work. And as you externally rotate, feel the space between the bottom of your neck and the outer shoulder get a little bit broader. And slowly release and relax. Take a moment. And then slide forward to puppy pose. So let your hips come up over your knees. You can have chin down or you can have forehead down. Start first with just a deep shoulder stretch. And then start to draw the low ribs in a little bit. So we'll start to isolate through the shoulders. So Alex, take your hips back over your knees a little bit. Keep going. Yeah. So as the shoulders move down, the low ribs draw in. Connect a little bit in through the low ribs. Yep, isolating the shoulders. And now work that same external rotation through the upper arm. So outer upper arms down and inner arms up. And come to tabletop. Take a few cat-cows just to feel good. Inhale to look forward and up, tailbone lifts. Exhale, spinal flexion, rounding, pubic bone, sternum, jaw together. And inhale, look forward on your own. Remember, the breath comes first. So we start to see the relationship between breath and movement in this pose. Find neutral, so the space between the rounding and the arching, neutral. Also wrap the upper arms here, down your back, without dropping the shoulder blades. And then hover your knees just a little bit up off the floor. Toes tucked under or untucked. Alex, slide your hips back over your knees. Jaw in, breathe. And don't tuck here, so let your tailbone lengthen back, April. Yeah, a little bit, and then engage your core. Good, push the floor. And roll over your toes for downward facing dog. Already starting to feel a little bit different than the first one that you did. So now again, here in downward facing dog, we're continuing to work that external rotation. So tops of the shoulders spread out of the ears, wrapping down. Biceps up. And you're still pushing the floor so the spine is getting longer. But you're not dropping the ribs down. Just like in the puppy pose, you draw the ribs in a little bit. Thighs root back a lot so that you get longer. Yeah, so feel the weight shift into the heels. And then we'll release, walk forward. And just hang. So you could grab opposite elbows. Full surrender. Inhale, halfway lift. Come up a little bit taller so you really get into a neutral spine. And exhale, fold forward. Inhale, sweep your arms wide to rise. Join your palms together at the top. Reach up. And exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale, sweep the arms wide. Reach up, join your palms. Exhale, bow forward, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Neutral spine, long. And exhale, step back to plank. So we'll take a moment here, again externally rotating, so when you're in plank pose, you go from maybe a little bit of this to a little bit of this when you're externally rotating. So just checking that that space between the neck and the shoulders is long, this is wrapping back, and we're lifting between the shoulder blades, so you're pushing the floor. A little bit different than lifting the rib cage, so we'll keep the rib cage in neutral and actually press the floor to lift the space between the shoulder blades. Careful about letting your head hang. You can look down, but don't let the head hang. Take another full breath in and slide your hips up and back, downward facing dog. Inhale, shift forward to plank pose. Exhale, release your knees. So y'all both kind of came more to tabletop. I'm looking for plank pose with the knees down, which is a little bit different than tabletop. So come back to plank and drop your knees down. Yep, hips stay forward, tailbone down. And 5 chaturanga push-ups, meaning the shoulders only go as low as the elbows. That's a little too low. Hold there. Good. All the way to straight arms. Take your tailbone down, Alex, and hips forward. Good. When you're done all 5, come back to plank. And exhale to downward facing dog. So just notice things have already started to awaken. Drop your knees to the earth, come to thunderbolt. Toes are untucked, rise up Take opposite elbows. Yeah, so sit on your heels and side bend to the right. And from here, release your right hand down, take your left arm over. And inhale, rise, both arms reach, take opposite elbows and side bend to the left. Release your left hand down, right arm over. And rise. Reach both arms up, look up. And exhale. Walk your hands forward and fold back into child's pose. Come to your forearms for forearm plank. Neutralize your head, so look down. And then drop your hips for Sphinx pose. Spread your shoulder blades, spread your back body, so both are broad. And then tuck your toes, lift your hips up. Forearm plank pose. Strong legs. Drop your hips down, Sphinx pose. Feel the pubic bone and the sternum draw together to give you the power to lift, and then come to neutral in your forearm plank pose. Yeah. Take another full breath here. Lower all the way down. Stretch your arms behind you. Inhale, lift for locust pose. Hug your inner thighs and wrap, lift, well, essentially lift through the inner thighs. Don't bend your knees, Alex. And slowly lower down. Take a moment, rest. I like to make a pillow with one hand under the forehead, and then you can bend your knees and just kind of windshield wiper them from side to side, as long as that's not uncomfortable. That's okay. Slowly release. Press up to plank pose. And exhale to down dog. So we're going to work a little bit more on your external rotation. So essentially, if we're in internal rotation, when we bend the elbows, they'll go wide. So if we're in external rotation and we bend the elbows, they'll hug in. So that's why teachers always tell you to not let the forearms splay in forearm plank or Pincha Mayurasana, forearm balance. So we hug in. So we'll play with that here just a little bit. So go ahead and start to bend your elbows. And as you bend your elbows, if they're going wide at all, you're going to wrap them down all the way through the shoulder. And then you're going to try to keep that wrapping and re-extend, which is going to be really difficult. Yeah, and we'll do that again. So bend the elbows. As you start to bend them, wrap, and you could do this with your knees down. And extend. And one more time. Bend, wrap, lower close to the floor, maybe all the way down, and extend back up. Yeah, good. And walk forward, right to a halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Inhale, rise. And exhale, hands to your heart. Release your arms wide, sweep them up. Join your palms together and fold forward. Take a halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Step your left leg back. We're going to do side angle pose. Left leg back. Keep your right hand down, or take forearm to the thigh to modify, or hand to block. And actually take your arm alongside your ear. So how the external rotation principle works here is if the armpit's opening and the palm is facing up, you're probably in internal rotation. So you're gonna wrap the pinky, wrap the tricep all the way. Now draw your ribs in a little bit, Alex. And take your gaze up. Unless it bothers your neck, your gaze can always be down. Use your back leg a little bit more. And draw in. Good, bring your hands down. Step forward and switch sides. Hi, take a halfway lift here before you switch sides. Exhale, fold, second side. This time your right leg steps back. So when you have your hand to the outside of the leg, I like to encourage the knee pushing out into the arm to help get the hip long, help to get the external rotation through the hip. And then keep wrapping all the way through the upper arm and reaching. Yeah, very nice. Stay until you're even with your first side and then step forward, halfway lift. And exhale, fold. We'll take an extra breath here. Good, step back to plank pose. Lower to your forearm. So we're gonna do some of the forearm plank stuff that I really like to work on when I'm working on shoulder strength. So again, remember we just talked about if the elbows are wide, we're in a little bit of internal rotation, which we're trying to avoid. So we're gonna make sure that the elbows are under the shoulders. And then in forearm plank, you're gonna just shift your whole body forward to the tips of your toes. And pull back. Shift forward. And pull back. We'll just do 5. Shift forward. If these feel easy, you're welcome to do up to 10. When you're done, take child's pose. We'll rest the arms before we transition into another variation. Just notice how you feel. And go ahead and let the arms come back for this one, so the arms fully rest. Notice your breath again. And slowly come back to forearm plank. This time we're gonna make it dolphin pose. So you're gonna walk your feet in closer. So the hips go high. And April, I'm gonna have you do both legs down, and Alex, I'm gonna have you do a more difficult version. So for you, April, you'll just shift forward and come back, 5 to 10. And Alex, for you, you'll lift the right leg. Keep it really straight and hug the midline a little bit more with your right leg. And then shift forward. So 5 like this and switch legs. If it needs to be less, it could be 2, it could be 3. And we're essentially just bringing the upper shoulders to the forearms. The further we go, the more we have to push back, so the more strength we actually have to use. Rest when you've finished. We've got a little bit more work to do. You've never gotten so many child's poses in any of my classes before. Okay, so slowly rise, come to standing. We're gonna kind of progress what we just did a little bit further, and we're gonna warm up the legs a little bit more to help. So fold forward. With an inhale, take your left leg high. So people tend to open the outer hip. So when you notice that, you can think about lifting through the inner thigh. Get the butt and the hamstring to do a little bit more work as you fold forward. People also tend to like to bend the knees, so just make sure you keep the legs straight. Start to bend your front knee, reach out through your back toes, hold this as you reach back for lunge. Straighten your front leg for floating splits pose. Feel free to have your hands on blocks. We're looking for a balanced pelvis here, so often the right hip needs to wrap back just a little bit, and a little bit neutral, so pubic bone kind of lifts and tailbone reaches back. Go ahead and soften this part of your back a little bit, April. Yeah. And then pulling the toes back is going to be more intense for the calf. So if you're a runner, you want more calf stretch for whatever reason, that's a good way to get into it. In fact, to make it even juicier, go ahead and use your left hand and take the big toe mound and pull back. Oh. Good. Slowly release. Bend your front leg forward for lunge. Stretch your arms forward. Neutral head, hips back. And bring your hands down, step forward. Right to a halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Second side, right leg lifts, standing splits. Again, watch the outer hip opening, so really think about lifting through the inner thigh. Your spine is working towards neutral as much as possible, so we're avoiding rounding, which is that spinal flexion. And then go slower on this one. So bend your front knee, reach out through your back toes. So that back leg extends, it reaches, and finally you land lunge legs. Make sure that you're hip distance apart so you're a little narrow. And then straighten your front leg. Looking for a balanced pelvis, left hip back, right hip maybe slightly forward. Definitely the left femur bone plugging into the hip socket. And then your spine extends forward, neutral. Go ahead and relax your head and look down. So looking forward often helps you kind of get out of rounding, but then we're kind of here with the head up. So then we gotta remember to neutralize the head, bringing it just back to being in line with the spine. And then bend your front knee. Lunge stance, stretch your arms forward. Modification would be arms back like airplane wings. Strong legs. Bring your hands to the earth this time, step back. So before we do the forearm push-ups like we're gonna do, kind of press-ish things, we're gonna take down dog push-ups. So walk your feet in just a little bit. And you're gonna work on that external rotation. So the elbows are gonna bend, they're gonna hug together like we've worked on. And then the crown of your head is gonna shift forward. Yeah, exactly. So what I didn't say is actually you really need to shift forward. So Alex, shift way forward till the shoulders are beyond the wrists and then down. Yeah, we'll just do 3. So notice how the elbows stay over the wrists. That's what you're looking for the most challenge. Good, when you finish 3, come to the forearms, take a break in between if you need to. Yeah, very nice. So eventually we want to be in dolphin pose. We can rest in between. So from your dolphin pose, take your right leg high. Go ahead and point both feet and come to the tiptoes of your other foot. So your whole weight shifts forward. So April, lift your right leg. And you could stay here without the shift forward. But if you'd like to, really lift through the top leg and see if you can float the bottom toes up off the floor. And slowly release. Take a break between sides. So what's happening is we're doing that shift forward like we worked on. However, if you keep shifting forward and you allow the weight of the hips or the lower body, you'll just kind of bonk your head on the floor. So when the shoulders shift forward, we want to also resist muscularly with the shoulders so that the hips go up. And that's the press action. That's how you're going to handstand press as well as forearm press. So let's try it again and I'll point that out. So come back to your dolphin pose. Again, remember, if the elbows are wide, we're in internal rotation, and we want the elbows under the shoulder, nice and in line for external rotation. You can see how nice and broad and open my chest looks. So left leg lifts high. Again, the option would be to kind of skip this part. You would just hold the leg lifted high. So he is going to shift forward, lifting high onto the tiptoes. But there's going to be a point where he stops shifting forward and he just resists muscularly to try to lift the leg. And he's got a slight hop, but that's okay. And rest. Back where we've begun, back to child's pose. Probably with the arms feeling much more alive. Come to a tall, comfortable seat. Any leg variation is just fine.
Yep.
Sit tall, close your eyes, and just notice how you feel. You can feel the expansiveness of your breath. Feel how the energy has shifted. Join your hands together. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.